Duke Cornelius Draymore allowed his fingers to trail slowly across the holographic projection of the principality, the faint blue light reflecting in his sharp, calculating eyes. Every flicker of territory represented lives, allegiances, betrayals, pieces on a board he had learned to master long before others even understood the rules of the game. He exhaled through his nose, a measured breath, the kind a predator took when prey moved exactly as expected. Somewhere beyond these shifting borders, his nephew was still alive, still moving, still slipping through cracks that should have closed long ago. The black ship, Cornelius murmured, tasting the name with mild disdain. Rumors of it had reached even his inner council. Whispers of a merchant vessel that appeared where it should not, carrying men and cargo that bent the rules of space and law alike. Coincidences piled upon coincidences, and Cornelius had never believed in coincidences. He turned away from the map and activated a secure channel, one that connected only to those who owed him loyalty not through blood, but through fear and debt. Track anomalous merchant routes near Estel and Valto borders, he ordered calmly. Focus on independent freighters with irregular manifests and delayed registry updates. I want names, crews, patterns. A pause followed. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, and if you find a ship called Never Late, notify me immediately. The channel closed, leaving the room silent once more. Far from the Duke's polished halls and quiet conspiracies, the Never Late hummed with renewed activity. The decision had been made, the vote cast, and now the weight of it settled into the bones of every crew member aboard. 10 large crates of weapons were not abstract numbers anymore. They were danger made tangible, risk stacked neatly into cargo holds that had once carried nothing more controversial than medical supplies or machine parts. Even the ship itself seemed to sense the shift, its engines vibrating with a deeper, more anxious rhythm. Gabriel, victor to them, stood alone in his office, eyes fixed on the dim screen before him. The numbers blurred together as his thoughts drifted elsewhere, drawn irresistibly toward the implications of their next move. Ishtal territory, House Kyogo, border conflicts that could flare into open war with the slightest provocation. Weapons without ammunition still spoke loudly enough. They were promises of violence waiting to be fulfilled. He pressed his palms against the desk, grounding himself. This was necessary. Every step closer to Valto territory is a step closer to his cousin, closer to reclaiming what had been torn from him. If innocent blood was spilled along the way, that was the cost of restoring order. At least, that was what he told himself. Doubt crept in regardless, quiet and persistent, like a hairline fracture spreading through stone. Loading began the following cycle. The rendezvous point lay in dead space, far from official trade lanes, a place where transponders lied and laws lost their meaning. An unmarked transport arrived first, its hull scarred and dull, crewed by men and women who spoke little and watched everything. The crates were moved with mechanical efficiency, heavy and sealed, each stamped with serial codes deliberately filed down to anonymity. Gabriel observed from the upper gantry, his expression carefully neutral. He cataloged details automatically, the way the loaders handled the crates, the type of grav lifters used, the absence of any visible insignia. Professionals, not pirates, not amateurs. This was an operation backed by serious resources, and that unsettled him more than open criminality ever could. Narissa joined him quietly, folding her arms as she followed his gaze. "Still think this isn't a setup?" she asked, not accusatory, just cautious. Gabriel nodded slowly. If it were, there would be observers, hidden patrol routes, false urgency. This feels desperate. Someone needs these weapons before something happens, not after. Narissa studied him for a moment longer, then looked back at the loading bay. "You speak like a man who's seen wars start." He met her eyes briefly. "I've seen what happens when people believe they can avoid them." Once the final crate was secured and sealed into the manifest under layers of falsified documentation, the Never Late departed without ceremony. No celebration followed this time. The crew dispersed to their stations, tension replacing the earlier camaraderie. Even Ramon's usual steady confidence seemed weighed down, his posture stiff as he oversaw the jump calculations. As the ship entered transit, Gabriel returned to his office, but rest eluded him. Sleep was impossible, his mind replaying old memories unbidden, marble halls, silk banners, the sound of laughter that had once been genuine. He wondered, briefly, if reclaiming his place would restore any of it, or if power would prove just as hollow now as the rations he forced himself to consume. In the depths of space, unseen and uncaring, the Never-Late hurtled toward its destination, carrying not just weapons, but the intersecting ambitions of nobles, mercenaries, and exiles alike. Every choice made aboard that ship rippled outward, threading itself into a web of consequences that none of them could yet see. And somewhere, far away, Duke Cornelius Draymore smiled faintly as his pieces continued to move.
The jump ended without incident, space unfolding back into reality with the familiar shudder that ran through the Never-Late's frame. Status lights stabilized one by one, and the low murmur of systems returning to full operation echoed through the corridors. Ramon remained seated longer than necessary, eyes fixed on the forward display as if expecting something to be wrong. Nothing was. That, somehow, unsettled him more than open danger ever did. Clear on all vectors, the navigator finally reported. No shadows, no passive scans detected. Ramon nodded, rising from his chair. Maintain emission silence for the next 6 hours. No unnecessary comms. He didn't need to raise his voice. Everyone understood what was at stake now. In the cargo bay, the 10 crates rested like sleeping beasts, inert yet heavy with implication. Reginald conducted another inspection, tools humming softly as he ran diagnostic sweeps over the containment locks. Everything read green. That didn't reassure him. Weapons had a way of attracting trouble even when they behaved perfectly. He paused, glancing up at the overhead gantry, half expecting to see Victor watching again. The man had an unsettling habit of appearing where important decisions were being made, silent and observant, like he was always 2 steps ahead. Reginald shook his head and returned to his work, muttering about nobles and their cursed instincts. Gabriel stood in his office, staring at a blank screen. For once, there was nothing left to calculate. The route was set, the risk accepted. All that remained was to endure the journey and ensure the outcome bent in his favor. He closed his eyes and let the ship's vibration wash over him. It reminded him, unpleasantly, of troop transports from his youth, of the moments before battle when men pretended not to be afraid. The difference was that back then, he had believed in the cause. Now, belief was merely a tool, something to be wielded when convenient. House Kyogo, he thought. A minor house, ambitious enough to play dangerous games. If they were arming themselves quietly, it meant they expected retaliation, or rebellion, or both. That knowledge could be useful later, if he survived long enough to trade it. The first sign of trouble came 8 hours into the transit corridor. "Captain," the sensor officer said, tension creeping into her voice. "I'm picking up residual distortion ahead. Not a jump signature. Something artificial." Ramon was at her side instantly. Define artificial. Localized gravimetric shear. Too precise to be natural. Nerissa leaned forward. "An interdiction net?" "Possibly," the officer replied. "But it's not active. More like dormant." Silence filled the bridge. Dormant meant deliberate. Someone had placed it there and expected to use it later, or expected someone else to stumble into it. Gabriel stepped forward before anyone could stop him. "Slow the ship. Minimal thrust. If we trigger it at speed, we won't like the result." Ramon hesitated only a fraction of a second before nodding. "Do it." The Never-Late decelerated, its engines whispering as the ship crept through the distortion field. Every second stretched painfully. Sweat beaded on foreheads. Fingers hovered over controls, ready to react. Nothing happened. When they cleared the anomaly, a collective breath was released across the bridge. "That wasn't random," Nerissa said quietly. "No," Gabriel agreed. "It was a test." Later, alone again, Gabriel allowed himself a thin, humorless smile. Tests could be passed. Traps could be avoided. What concerned him was the intelligence behind them, the unseen players who were now, undoubtedly, paying attention. If Duke Cornelius was watching, then so be it. Let him see a common freighter. Let him underestimate what moved beneath the mask. The game was widening. Pieces were converging. And for the first time since his exile, Gabriel felt something dangerously close to anticipation.